Yo, what's good? Welcome into the show. You're watching Philadelphia Eagles Now. My name is Chase Sr. Thanks for hanging out here with us. What I want to do today is take a look at 6 free agents who the Philadelphia Eagles could sign, and we know that Howie Roseman has his eyes peeled on some players who he could add to this roster. Here he is in Indianapolis a few years ago at the NFL Combine, I believe, or maybe during a game with binoculars. And in looking for this picture, because when I was thinking about Howie Roseman trying to improve this roster, I racked my brain and I remembered this photo. And in looking for this photo, I searched Howie Roseman binoculars. I came across this article that I wanted to share with the people to give you a laugh from all the way back in 2021. This was right after the Eagles had signed Nick Sirianni and hired him to be their next head coach and replacing Doug Peterson. And look at the headline of this article. I'm giving up jerking off until the Eagles demote Howie Roseman. I'm really curious how this guy is doing, how this writer is faring, if he's gone all this time without masturbating, or if he gave up on that promise, because what have the Eagles done since 2021? They've made the playoffs every year. That season in 2021, they made the playoffs, first year in a rebuild under Sirianni. They won 14 games, got the number 1 seed in 2022, should have won the Super Bowl. In 2023, won double-digit games in a down year. And then this past year, 14 wins again, and their second Super Bowl since 2017. So that writer making a bold statement, does anybody know how that writer is doing nowadays? I thought that was hilarious. Had to share it with all of you. Back on track here. Let's get serious. Biggest remaining needs for Philadelphia, and this will segue us in to 6 free agent players who the Eagles could sign to add to this roster. Well-known veterans, too, who we're about to talk about here. I'd say the safety position is at the top of that list just because Philadelphia traded away C.J. Gardner-Johnson. They really like Sidney Brown, but what's the depth? Tristan McCullum? That's why I think the Eagles need to at least bring in a veteran, and I imagine they're going to sign a safety early in the draft. Could the Eagles add a Justin Simmons type? We'll talk about him here on this show. Defensive tackle, another need. And there's a big date looming, May 2nd. That's the deadline for Philadelphia to exercise the 5th-year option on Jordan Davis. I'm very high on Moro Ojomo. Jordan Davis really started to come on last year. It's a big year for him coming up. But after the Eagles lost Milton Williams, who was a dominant player, second highest graded pass rushing defensive tackle in the NFL, defensive tackle is a need. Linebacker. I'm curious what the Eagles' plans and thoughts are here. They let Oren Burks go. I thought they were going to bring him back because he got a 2-year, $5 million deal with the Cincinnati Bengals. The Eagles, of course, retained Zack Baun, giving him $34 million in guaranteed money. But I thought Burks was going to be back because with that knee injury that Nakobe Dean suffered, torn patellar tendon, there was some chatter that he wasn't going to be back until the midway point of next year at the earliest. But clearly, I think the Eagles think that he can be back earlier, or they really like Jeremiah Trotter Jr., and then offensive line depth, always a big need for Howie Roseman and this organization because they firmly believe you build your football teams inside out, and I believe that's the best way to build a football roster. So with that, we flip the page to the top free agents left who can make sense for the Birds in free agency. And let's begin with the future Hall of Famer here in Calais Campbell. Calais Campbell, his durability at his size is incredible to me. He is 38 years old. He is 300 pounds. And he's still playing at a really high level. Of course, one of the more respected veterans in the National Football League. He was the Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year in 2019. He's won a community award in 2024. And he was a team captain his lone season with the Dolphins last year. And last year, he played in all 17 games. He had 52 tackles as a rotational defensive lineman, had 12 TFLs, 5 sacks, 12 quarterback hits, and 5 pass breakups. This is a player who was the Pro Football Writers of Association Defensive Player of the Year in 2017. First team All-Pro that year as well. Second team All-Pro in 2014 and 2016. A 6-time Pro Bowler and a member of the NFL 2010s All-Decade team. And in his last 4 years, you have seen that production remain pretty consistent. Last 3 seasons, 5.5 sacks, 6.5 sacks, 5 sacks. And I think it's important for Philadelphia to address defensive tackle and defensive line in general, edge and along the interior in the NFL draft. But it can never hurt to bring in a veteran leader like that in Campbell who can still play and be a great mentor for some of these young players on this Eagles roster. Julian Blackmon is a very intriguing option at the safety position. I don't think he's going to break the bank with his new contract. He's still a young player who's a former third-round pick, came into the league with pedigree, and he's played pretty good football in his career to start. And I'm actually surprised up to this point that his market's been as slow as it's been. In 2024, 86 tackles on that back end, 1 TFL, clearly more of a coverage guy, 4 pass breakups and 7 picks. When you can combine for 7 there, that's not bad. He was targeted 23 times. He did give up 19 completions for 374 yards and 2 touchdowns. The quarterback rating when targeted, 108.2. Part of the reason why his value is down a little bit, but you're asking Julian Blackmon to come in, cheap deal, resurrect his career, serve as safety depth, and a player who can get some snaps from time to time, week in and week out, who has ability. 12 pass breakups in the last 2 seasons, and a pretty solid tackler. Blackmon is also only 26 years old. So whereas Calais Campbell is 38, Blackmon's 26. And players come to Philadelphia to resurrect their careers because they trust this coaching staff and their ability to develop players. And Sirianni has familiarity with Julian Blackmon too. He was a 3rd-round pick when Sirianni was on the staff in 2020 as the offensive coordinator under Frank Reich. Third free agent here is a player who we've talked about a lot in the past, mostly last offseason because I was advocating for the Eagles to sign Justin Simmons. Blankenship ended up having a fantastic year and is a leader on this Eagles team. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, I wanted the Eagles to bring him back, but I just thought Philadelphia could have used Justin Simmons as a depth piece with Sidney Brown coming off that torn ACL. He went to the Atlanta Falcons, and he had a little bit of a down year for a Falcons defense as a whole that really struggled. 62 tackles, 7 pass breakups, 2 picks, 2 TFLs. Why we keep talking about Justin Simmons here, especially this offseason, he first of all said that the Eagles are high on his list for places to go to. He played under Vic Fangio and Christian Parker, the Eagles defensive backs coach, who's looked at as a rising star when he was with the Denver Broncos. And in his Broncos career, Justin Simmons was a 4-time second-team All-Pro, a top 5 safety for basically his entire tenure with Denver. He has been a pass breakup machine, a center field ball-hawking safety who also plays with really good feel and really good instincts. Bring him in on a cheap deal. I think that he could play well. He knows this system, and if Sidney Brown doesn't work out, you know that you can rely on Justin Simmons alongside Blankenship. Both of those players, by the way, can make plays on the rock. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. We talk Eagles draft. We talk Eagles free agency. We do it all here on the program. So lock us in, hit that subscribe button as we close in on 120,000 subscribers. Our sponsor for today's show, our friends at PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy, and the best daily fantasy sports app in the game. That's evidenced by them having more than 10 million active members, and they've given out more than $1 billion in awarded winnings. Right now, when you use that link down below, prizepicks.com/CLNS, and you play $5, you get $50 instantly. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed, and you can withdraw your winnings all within the app. Some future football picks that we like. Obviously, college basketball is humming right now, and baseball season is about to get underway. Basketball playoffs around the corner. Jared Goff, we're going to go less on the passing yards there. Travis Kelce, less on the receiving yards. And then Jaden Daniels, I think he throws it a little bit more and wants to stay healthy. Less on the rushing yards. Pick more, pick less. Run your game with PrizePicks. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Get $50 when you play 5. Eagles have some familiarity with this player in Kyzir White. He was the starting linebacker for the Eagles when they made it to the Super Bowl back in 2022, and then he followed Jonathan Gannon to the Arizona Cardinals when Gannon took the head coaching job there. And Kyzir White is a player who, the theme of this list, all of these players are affordable. The Eagles don't want to break the bank with any of these signings, and that's why they all make sense for Philadelphia. These veterans want an opportunity to chase after a Super Bowl. They could come to the Eagles. And Kyzir White, the Eagles need linebacker depth. If you need him to start, great. If he's a depth option, that's fantastic news because he's a viable depth option. And I like how he can make plays against the run. He can make plays against the pass, and he is a trusted tackler. 137 tackles last year, 9 TFLs. Not the best in coverage, but he can at least survive there. And you look at what he's done in his last 4 years, he has more than 100 tackles in 3 of those 4 years. So you can at least trust him to take down ball carriers as an off-ball coverage linebacker. So on a 1-year deal, worth little money, Kyzir White is a player who you have familiarity with, who you know what he can be for your Eagles defense. I'd take a flyer on him coming back to Philadelphia for a cheap price. Stephon Gilmore, potential future Hall of Famer, former Defensive Player of the Year. He played good football last year for Minnesota. He played good football the year before that with the Dallas Cowboys. Is he the player who he was with the Patriots when he won Defensive Player of the Year? No. Is he a lockdown corner any longer? No. He's past that, but he could still be a very good outside corner. And the Eagles do have some depth concerns depending on who you ask at that cornerback position. And last year, look at what he was able to do for Minnesota. That was one of the best defenses in the NFL with one of the top defensive coordinators in the game in Brian Flores. 9 pass breakups, 1 pick. Now, what he did in 2019 when he won Defensive Player of the Year, it was incredible. That was his 2nd straight year with 20 pass breakups. He had 2 pick sixes. He had 6 interceptions that year. We're a long way removed from that. But when he's been able to stay healthy the last 3 years, in 2022 with the Colts, 11 pass breakups. In 2023 with the Cowboys, 13. And last year, he had 9 more. So he still wants to play. He's not a player who's going to cash in on a monster contract. Obviously, I think a lot of these veterans are going to wait to see what happens in the NFL draft. The Eagles are fine with that. These veterans are fine with that. And then the Eagles will have an opportunity to reassess things, identifying what needs they still have following the draft and which players are able to bring in. Jedrick Wills, for any offensive lineman with pedigree who wants to get his career back on track, a lot of offensive linemen are always looking at the Eagles. Jedrick Wills was drafted 10th overall by the Cleveland Browns back in the 2020 draft. And in year 1, played 15 games and started 15 of them. Year 2, had 13 starts in 13 games. Year 3, played in 17 games, started every one of them. The last 2 years, though, he's only played in 8 games and 5 games. He started every one of those except for 1, but the play has been inconsistent, and he's been very injury-prone. But when he was in college, everybody thought he was going to be a sure thing. The PFF grades last year, not good. But with Jeff Stoutland, you hope that you can maximize the player here, and he'd be a depth piece. 52.9 overall grade, pass blocking grade in the green at 63.6. Not a good run blocking grade. Had 7 penalties and gave up 3 sacks. To do all of that in 5 games, it is not ideal. 5 hurries in those 5 games as well. But Deshaun Watson was also holding on to the ball forever, and he was a mess at the quarterback spot for Cleveland. So pick a free agent that you want the Eagles to sign. We just ran through 6 players. Pick one, pick multiple. You can do whatever you want. We just appreciate you for hanging out here on the show.